The first-class cabin buzzed with the hum of wealth, designer bags crammed into overhead bins, cologne mingling with freshly brewed coffee, and the faint glow of screens flashing stock prices. James Carver sank into his seat, a smug grin tugging at his lips.
He'd earned this spot.
Unlike the young blonde slipping into the seat beside him, Karoline Leavitt, mid-20s, no flashy labels, just a tablet and a quiet confidence that instantly irked him. "Daddy's money, huh?" he muttered, loud enough to sting. She didn't flinch.
Who is she really?
Another spoiled kid coasting on privilege? Or something more? The truth was about to hit him like a freight train, and he'd regret every word. Have you ever misjudged someone at first glance? Stick around. This flight's twist will make you question everything. And we'd love to hear your own stories in the comments below. The flight from Washington, D.C. to Tampa was packed. First class was a tight squeeze of egos and privilege, the air thick with the scent of expensive cologne and fresh coffee, the kind that screamed money without saying a word. James Carver settled into his window seat, loosening his tie with a satisfied sigh. At 50, he'd clawed his way up from nothing. Decades of late nights, cheap suits, and relentless hustle had landed him here. He belonged in first class, earned it with every drop of sweat. The woman sliding into the seat beside him? Not so much. Young, mid-20s, maybe. Blonde hair pinned back neatly, dressed in a simple black blazer and white top. No jewelry, no designer bag, just a slim tablet she powered on without a glance his way. Karoline Leavitt, though he didn't know her name yet, didn't fit his mental checklist of who deserved to sit here. James sized her up in seconds. Another trust fund kid, probably sipping champagne on her parents' dime while he'd spent years scraping by. He smirked, shaking his head. The nerve of some people. "Must be nice," he muttered, loud enough for her to hear. She didn't react, her eyes fixed on her tablet. That annoyed him. People usually noticed when James Carver spoke. Clients, colleagues, even strangers on planes. He'd built a career reading rooms, spotting winners and losers at a glance. And this girl? She screamed loser. Privileged. Untested. Coasting through life. Leaning back, crossing his arms, he let his voice drip with sarcasm. "I bet your parents are real proud, getting their little girl a first-class seat like this." Her fingers paused over her screen. She turned her head slightly, just enough to meet his gaze. "I'm sorry, what?" Her tone was flat. Not defensive. Not irritated. Almost like he was a buzzing fly she hadn't decided to swat yet. It threw him off. James chuckled, doubling down. "You heard me. First class isn't cheap. What did you do to earn it? Or did Daddy just swipe his card?" Her expression didn't shift. "I'm working," she said simply. Then she went back to her tablet. James snorted. Sure. Probably scrolling Instagram or planning her next beach vacation. He'd seen her type before. Young, entitled, floating through life, while people like him fought for every inch. He'd started as a nobody, a kid from a nowhere town with no connections, no handouts. Years of grinding through sales gigs, charming difficult clients, and outsmarting competitors had gotten him here. Meanwhile, this girl waltzed in like she owned the place. He shifted in his seat, irritation simmering. "Work, huh? What kind of work does a kid like you do that lands you here?" His voice carried now, sharp enough to draw a few glances from nearby passengers. Karoline didn't bite. She tapped something on her screen, her focus unwavering. That only fueled him more. "Let me guess, shopping sprees don't count as a job, right? Or maybe you're one of those influencers." "That's it, isn't it?" She sighed. Not loud, not dramatic. Just a faint exhale. Then, setting her tablet on her lap, she turned to him fully, her gaze steady. "You don't know me," she said. Not loud, not harsh, but firm enough to make him pause. James smirked, undeterred. "I don't need to. I've met plenty of spoiled brats pretending they belong here. You're not fooling anyone." For a moment, silence hung between them. Then Karoline tilted her head, a faint smile tugging at her lips. Not warm, not friendly, just knowing. "We'll see," she said, then turned back to her work. James frowned. "We'll see?" What the hell did that mean? He opened his mouth to push further, but something about her calm, unshaken demeanor stopped him. She wasn't rattled. She wasn't even annoyed. And that, more than anything, made him uneasy. He'd find out soon enough who she really was. And when he did, every smug word he'd just thrown at her would come crashing back. James Carver wasn't used to being ignored. He'd spent decades commanding attention. Whether in boardrooms or barrooms, people listened when he talked. So when Karoline Leavitt brushed him off with that cool, detached, "I'm working" line, it didn't just irk him. It lit a fuse. He shifted in his seat, the leather creaking beneath him, and fixed her with a hard stare. She didn't even look up, her fingers tapping away on that damn tablet like he was invisible. That wasn't how this was supposed to go. He called her out, pegged her as some rich kid playing pretend, and she was supposed to squirm,
Stammer.
maybe even snap back. Not this. Not nothing. "You're working," he repeated, his voice low and mocking, testing the waters.
Right.
What's that mean, exactly? Booking spa days for mommy and daddy's next vacation. He smirked, waiting for a crack in her armor. Karoline didn't bite. She kept her eyes on her screen, her expression steady. "I'm preparing for something," she said. Clipped. Matter of fact. Like she was explaining the weather to a stranger. James snorted. "Yeah? What's a little princess like you preparing for? Your next selfie?" Her fingers paused just for a split second. But she didn't look at him. "Something important," she said. Then resumed typing. Important. That was it. James felt the heat creeping up his neck. She wasn't giving him anything. No argument. No defense. Just these vague, infuriating non-answers. The whispers around them started low at first, a ripple among the passengers. But they grew sharper, more pointed. "What a jerk," someone muttered a few rows back. "Can you believe this guy?" another voice hissed. Then came the shout, loud and unfiltered, from a burly man near the front. "Who the hell does he think he is, talking to Leavitt like that?" Heads turned, eyes locked on James, pinning him in place. His throat tightened. Confidence? Swagger?
Gone.